Hello, everybody. This is Ryan from I Try Running Programs. And as my channel title alludes to, I like to try different running programs. Now, one of the reasons I've ended up selecting Hal Higdon's Advanced One program for this year's marathon is that ultimately I haven't actually used a true running program for a marathon before. I'm generally somebody who self-trains and have realized maybe I'm not training myself to the best that I can. For reference, I'm somebody who runs a 5K in kind of the lower 20-minute range, about the 20 to 21-minute range. Though I haven't run a 5K since 2019, so I can't really speak to if that time has changed. And the last time I ran a half marathon to completion, it was in the low 140 range. So certainly we'll see over time how that training program changes things for me. One of my areas of interest is trying to run a Boston qualifying time. I won't necessarily give away my exact age, but I'm in my 30s and I am still in the 18 to 35 category. So I am trying to run a 305 eventually. I don't know if I'll be able to do that this year. We'll see how things are going. Most of my recent training miles have been in the low 7s to high 7 range, and that feels relatively comfortable to me. Though in some cases, when I get into the lower 7s, I do feel like my heart rate is a little high. So that's just a little bit of background about my current running. Now, in terms of the program itself, the Advanced One program is kind of interesting. I haven't seen a ton of data points from people on the internet, whether it's Reddit or Let's Run, that really discusses their time with the program and how it impacted their ultimate running outcomes. So, maybe I'll be one of the first to really kind of talk about it. Not really the first, but one of the few who's going to really document the whole training program from start to finish. So my goal with this video is to give you a little bit of background about the program, how Hal writes it, and then also the reasons why I selected it. And I've kind of alluded to a few already. So in terms of the program itself, you can see that, Hal kind of notates that this is a progressive build program, one that starts at a 10-mile long run and builds up to a 20-mile long run. So a relatively traditional marathon training program. And he really details out a variety of details. I'm not going to read all of them to you. But essentially, this is a program where you run 6 days a week. You have one rest day. There's really only a few quality sessions per week. In most cases, it looks like just one quality session per week or two quality sessions per week, one long run, and then a lot of easy running. So it makes a lot of sense to me. It seems pretty simple in nature to follow. And I certainly feel like my base building up until this point makes the overall mileage very easy to tackle. So that's one of the primary reasons I picked the program, is I felt like the mileage was consistent with what I was running leading up to this. And naturally, I think any running YouTube content creator that you would run across would say the same thing. Look to what your base building has done. What were you able to handle then? That gives you a pretty good idea in terms of the total mileage that you can adequately move up to as you're working through your marathon training. So in terms of the program itself, because it reads as advanced, a lot of folks are going to think, well, I can't do this. And, Hal kind of notates, I think quite well, that it's not about time in terms of this. It's more about really time on feet that you're used to, your total mileage. If you're somebody who views yourself as somebody who runs probably 1,000+ miles per year, this is a program that you can probably do. If not, you might want to move down to a more novice and intermediate version of his programs. And there are a lot of data points on the internet around those two levels of programs. So I highly recommend going to Reddit, going to Let's Run, even YouTube. A lot of people have detailed their training at the novice and intermediate level. So if you're looking for those levels, certainly do kind of use the power of Google to find some information on that front. Now, in terms of some of the key workouts that this program does, like any marathon program, this is a program that's built around using long runs to prepare you for a marathon. As I alluded to before, it is a 10-mile first long run, and then it builds from there. The maximum is a 20-mile long run. And even Hal notates here that some folks, in the past have notated that you could do a 23 or 26 or an even longer long run. And in many cases, that doesn't really benefit you because you have the potential to basically either overtrain or injure yourself, and it takes away from the ability to do better, more quality sessions during the week. So if you want to have two great, kind of track workouts or some hill workouts, you can't really do those if you're constantly recovering from super, super long runs. Okay. So obviously, I'm in big agreement here with Hal. I think the overall buildup of the long run makes a lot of sense to me. And it certainly seems to be in line with the literature that I've read in terms of peer-reviewed studies. Now, he also makes a key distinction to really to run slow. And that is even more important in the long runs. I think we've all been guilty. We go out, we get a little excited, we start, running at a really intense pace, or you start doing all of your runs at race pace. That's a really easy way to overtrain, really easy way to get injured, and just a really easy way to get burnt out and to give up on your training halfway through. So a great reminder he provides here is that it doesn't hurt to be anywhere from 30 to 90 seconds per mile slower from your intended race pace, especially when you're doing your long runs and your easy runs. So that's something that for me, I will definitely be working on. And as you see my update videos, I'm going to try to really focus on that because it is an area with my running that I struggle with, where I get a little too excited. I'm out and about. I just had my coffee and I'm ready to go. And I end up overdoing it. And I've pretty much any training cycle I've ever done, that's happened on probably 50% of my runs. So I'm really trying to use my watch effectively and keep my eye on the prize in terms of really keeping the running at a level that's good. One of the things I love about my watch is that it has a heart rate monitor, and it does a really good job of giving you your beats per minute. And so using that data on Strava, I can really go back and go, okay, I really overly push it on this run or over push it in this section. And these are areas where I need to be careful. So one of those areas, not to get off the beaten path of this video, but that's something that you can definitely use. Some people like mathotone training. I'm not going to necessarily explain what that is, but I think definitely keeping an eye on your beats per minute is an area that can help you from overtraining. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. And I think the run slow reminder is just so important, especially if you're like me, where you're also kind of in a cutting phase with my lifting. You don't really want to over push yourself already because you're already somewhat at a calorie deficit. So that's even another reason to run slower in those types of circumstances. Now, this is something that before the video I had not really heard of before, which is 3-1 training. And Hal explains this is essentially, let's say you have a 16-mile run, as he notates here. 75% of it you could run at a relatively comfortable, slower pace, as he recommends before. But then in the back quarter of the run, you could run either at race pace, well, not even race pace, a little bit slower, but faster. You could run a little bit faster than what you were running before, but slower than race pace. And this is to once again give you the ability to get a little bit more quality into your training program, a little bit more speed work without it being overly strenuous. So this is something that I think you'll see on a few of my runs. He notates that this is something that you want to do sparingly, maybe about once or twice a month on your long run. So only once or twice out of the 4 or 5 long runs that you would do in a month. So a really cool idea, something I'd never even thought about doing before. I am really excited to include in my training because in my opinion, especially, that I'm running the California International Marathon for my marathon in December, one of the things that you find at that particular course is the last half of the marathon, especially maybe the last 10 miles, are deceptively hard. There is some downhill stretches in there, but there are also some uphill stretches. And so it's really important to have good, strong legs. And so running tired, but running a little bit faster while tired in training, I think can help provide a really good training stimulus, very much so for that particular type of course that I'm running on. But of course, I think that would be beneficial to any marathon that you're running as well. Hill training, another great emphasis of his program. I love hill training. It's something that I just try to do even in my more basic kind of base building times. For him specifically, he notates trying to find about a quarter mile of a hill to do repeats on, though he does say not to worry so much about the distance and to try to diversify both running uphill and downhill in terms of running it with speed. These are meant to be quality workouts that you're running more like a repeat. In my particular case, based on where I live, the best hill is about a mile long. So I will be elongating these a little bit longer than he recommends, just because once again, with CIM being hilly, I really want to train hills hard. So you'll see me do a 2-to-1 method here. Like for every 3 hills I do, 2 will be ran uphill hard and 1 will be ran downhill hard. And so I will continue to run in that style on hill training. And when I go over my Strava workouts each week, you'll see that very commonly done in my workouts. Okay. And then lastly, interval training. Well, not last, excuse me. One of the last items here is interval training. We all know what interval training is. Essentially, it's doing various forms of repeats. Okay, so this is something where you would go and do more quality sessions on the track, or if you know a certain lap that you do around your home is X amount of meters, then you can do various intervals in that methodology where you're working on speed, you're developing speed over time. Okay, so interval training is a piece of his program. I do think there's only about 8 to 10 interval workouts at all, excuse me, included in the program. So it's not a ton of work in terms of the quality sessions that he creates, but they are included. And I think they are certainly important for building out your top end speed. Okay. And then lastly, probably my favorite, gosh, I keep saying lastly, I keep forgetting there's more and more. One of my favorite things is tempo runs. This is where you're running a little bit more at a race pace. In his case, this is something where you're going to run a little bit more like a 10K pace or a little bit more like race pace. It just depends on how you want to run these. I will probably be running these more towards race pace for me, in some cases a little bit faster, but they will primarily just be done to build up top end speed, similar to the track workouts, the interval type workouts, and similar to hills. They're going to be meant to build speed, to build up some top end endurance there as well. Okay. And then lastly, cross training. He does not schedule in cross training. I personally cross train in the gym. I have a home gym here where I lift. I lift 3 to 4 times a week. So basically for every 2 weeks, I lift 7 days. And I do a fair amount of walking for work. So there will be some cross training. It's not something I'm going to talk about too significantly in my videos, but just so in the back of your mind, as you're thinking about, the different things that I talk about, cross training is included in my own personal regimen for my own personal benefit. It's not really, I don't even do it for running. I just do it because I like to lift. Okay. And then lastly, in terms of race pace and races, and I'm not going to go over the easy runs that he talks about lower because I think it's relatively self-explanatory, but in terms of race paces, he does do a lot of work at race pace. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So there's usually at least one run per week where you are running at race pace. So for example, for me, if I'm going to train at a 305 level, even though I don't know if I even can run a 305 marathon. So I will be running most of my race pace workouts somewhere around 705 to 710 per mile. And this is obviously just something where you can find a calculator and determine what your pace is. So if you're a 4-hour marathoner, he says you can run 909. If you're a 5-hour marathoner, you would adjust accordingly. So use a calculator there, find the race pace that's relevant to your particular race that you plan to run. And then that way you can better run those workouts. Okay. And then in terms of races, he doesn't prescribe races. You'll see somewhere he recommends it, but it is helpful to gain an understanding. When I run the 13-mile or a little bit longer, maybe a 14-mile long run, I will time trial a half marathon there to see where I'm at. Because, if it's just unlikely that I can run a 305, then I need to adjust accordingly so I can do my race pace workouts well. If I run a decent half marathon time, I feel like I can improve over time because I do have a little bit of weight to lose. And I do have done basically no quality workouts this year. I've just been running just however I want to run. So I'm kind of in this weird nebulous stage where I think I can run a 305, but I also think that I can't, and I just don't know. So I have to run some workouts to really know. And then in terms of easy runs and rest, very simple here. Naturally, as alluded to before, he highly recommends that your Monday and Wednesday, just general mileage days, are run as easy as you possibly can, and that your rest days, you truly rest. You don't go out and go hiking. You don't go out and do something crazy. You just try to take some time off your feet a little bit and give your body some time to respond to the training stimulus, to get a little bit faster. And this is something that I really need to prescribe myself because I have a tendency to overtrain. So I will be listening to Mr. Higdon here quite thoroughly. Okay, so now in terms of the plan, I won't go over it week by week, but you can essentially see how it's structured. On Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, they're just easy miles. You just go out and you just go run them. On Thursday, there's some type of work session. Friday, there's a rest day. And then Saturday, there's more of a pace type effort on most days. There's some days where he prescribes still just easy runs. And then your Sunday is generally your long run day. My days will be a little bit different because I'm going to start my training program each Sunday. But there might be some movement. And even Hal says, if you need to move these workouts around, that's fine. There's really no major issue, though you should try to rest before your more intensive workouts, which makes relative sense. You can run them on fresh legs. So you can see overall, very basic program. It follows its methodology all the way through. There's either 3 or 4 easy runs or 3 easy runs, 2 workouts, and a long run. So pretty simple program. You can see he recommends kind of time trialing a half marathon around week 9. So I very well will likely wait till then to really trial my half marathon and see what I think I can run. I'm going to use the simple mathematics of taking my half marathon, timesing it time, multiplying it by 2, if I could speak, and then go ahead and add 10 minutes. And that's how I'm going to get my prospective marathon time at around week 9. And you can see there's multiple instances where you run 20-mile runs. So he gives you plenty of time on your feet to really build up the strength, the muscles, the musculoskeletal system to really be able to respond well to the marathon. So overall, simple plan. It's 18 weeks long. I may not be able to fit all 18 weeks in before CIM. I might only get to about week 17. So I probably won't fully deload quite to the level that Hal is recommending in his program. So I may cut out the 17th week. I'll kind of get there when I get there. But by and large, I should be able to fit the whole program. So that's an overview of Hal Higdon's Advanced 1 program and how it fits into my overall goals for CIM. I hope that was useful in terms of describing some of those workouts and why they matter and just taking a peek at the program as a whole. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, take care.